Okay, it is 6:30. Today is October 25th, 2023. This is the Board of Directors' regular meeting of Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1. We do have a quorum. Mr. Brewster is under the weather, so he will not be here today. And we'll call to order. We do have a quorum, as I mentioned. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the board on any matter, whether or not it is posted on the agenda. The board is not permitted to take action on or discuss any comments made to the board at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. The board will hear comments on specific agenda items prior to the board addressing those items. You may speak up to 4 minutes or the time limit determined by the president or presiding officer. To speak during this item, you must complete the speaker's form that includes the topics of your statement, the blue form here. Citizens' comments should be limited to matters over which the board has authority. Do we have any comments for the citizens' presentation? I see item 4. Yeah, they're speaking on item 4, I believe. Okay. So we'll go to reports and updates. We have no comments from the citizens. Number 1, staff reports. A, capital improvement projects. B, operations reports. C, finance reports. First one is quarterly tax collections, fourth quarter, and the next one is quarterly investments report, fourth quarter, and then D, platform analytics. Staff?
Good evening, directors. Capital updates tonight. The FY 2023 waterline project is moving along well. The installation of the water lines on Berkshire Court have been finished. Boring of long services is underway on Skyline Drive, and as of today, the temporary line has been pressure tested and samples taken on that, so we hope to have them transferred over to the temporary water line by the end of this week. Long service lines on Lee Court were installed, but we're working through a modification to the original plan sheets for that, so once we get those updated and quantities adjusted, they'll be moving over after completing Skyline Drive. Pump station improvement project, it's slow going. Submittals are in progress, but not much movement other than that. The lift station generators, the concrete pads have been installed and backfilled. The electrical is about 50% complete. And installation of the automatic transfer switches will be coming next and coordinated with staff. The delivery of the generators is still anticipated for December this year sometime, and a final completion date of April 2024. The FY 2024 waterline project is currently in design, as well as the wastewater treatment plant CIP improvement project that was approved last month. And the South Lake emergency connection is also slow moving until we receive an updated water master plan from South Lake. In regards to finance reports, Stephen provided you with an updated charts and graphs. We noticed there was an error in one of the charts, and you couldn't see the amounts of actual consumption for this budget, so that's been provided for you all. And other than that, I don't have any other updates unless you all have questions.
Go ahead, Bill.
I have one question. On the wastewater treatment plant, CIP improvement project, you mentioned installation of an exhaust fan on the south side of the MBRs.
Yes.
I want to make sure we don't have an issue with it like we had with the blower that was making noise in the neighborhood and we ended up.
This is more of a, it's smaller in nature. So there's already an area where the staff goes in and it's an open doorway, and we're just trying to get some better ventilation through that. So it's probably a 3x3 opening. Okay. It's not going to be very big at all.
Okay, so we don't anticipate any noise problems there.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I have 2 things. The first one is the waterline projects. You said that you mentioned that they're going to go on, but the streets are Inverness, Forest Hill, Sonora Drive, Pagosa Court, Palo Duro Court, and Mesa Verde Court. Does that sound right?
For next, the FY 24, yes.
Right, and then we will send notification out to these residents prior to that.
Prior to construction.
Is that right, Mike?
That's correct.
Second thing is, I received an email from the town regarding TCQ code violation, I believe it was, for the consumer confidence report. understand that Mike Hand carried it down there, delivered it to Matt Cox, is that right, Mike?
That's correct.
Back in April, you said, or March?
March.
March, okay. And all they had to do is sign it and mail it, and that obviously fell through the cracks. Does that sound right?
That's pretty much what happened, yes.
Just for people listening in, which are very few, but just so it's out there, we did not have any violations. It was the town not reporting on the town and the PID, correct?
That's correct, and we went ahead and provided them the information again today so they can submit it and submit that information back to TCQ.
Okay, so that's being taken care of, and it should be done sometime this week,
We assume.
correct?
Yes, we've already sent the information to them, and I had a phone conversation with them as well today about how to take care of that process and let us know if they needed any more assistance.
Okay, but they haven't confirmed that they have completed it.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so the ball's not in our court. right?
That's correct.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. We'll go on to consent agenda. All matters listed as consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Directors and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. We have consent agenda number 2, consider and act to approve the consent agenda, A, September 20th, 2023, regular meeting minutes. Do I have anybody? Mr. Rose?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, Director Rose made a motion to approve September 20th, 2023, regular meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, by Secretary Treasurer Harper, second. Any discussion? I see none. All in favor, show of hands. Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, regular sessions. Do you want to just jump to item 4, since we have people here, or we could go to Chris, either or, to get that out of the way?
It's your decision.
Okay, Connie, do you want to come up now for agenda item 4?
Marion.
Okay, either or.
Go to 4.
Okay, if you would, just state your name and your address, please. And let me just open this agenda item. It's discussion, item 4, discussion possible action regarding use of district annex building, which is the building
Right.
to the west here. Okay?
My name is Marion Harker. I live on 345 Tennyson Trail here in Trophy Club. I'm one of 5 ladies from the Trophy Club Women's Club. Connie is one of them, Carol Tombari and Sarah Miniatis, and they should be here. I guess the rain is probably holding them back. And Marsha Payet is the 5th one. She's out of town. About maybe 15 months ago or so, we started researching the possibility of a community center in Trophy Club. We actually like to call it a gathering place. So a place where people could get together and socialize, play games, maybe a library, maybe a dance studio, all kinds of things that we are envisioning for the community. I think Trophy Club is probably one of the few communities here in the area that does not have a community center. And what we did over the past few months, we visited several community centers in the area, including Denton, Coppell, Roanoke, just to research what a community center looks like, the programs they offer, membership fees, how such a center is, the directors, and how, sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not used to speaking like that. So we visited several centers, had really good tours and explored that. And then we started looking around what could be a good option here in Trophy Club. Over time, and I can take you through more detail, maybe in a separate session, but we came upon the annex building here, which is empty and I guess has been empty for some time, and explored how we could use that maybe for a gathering place. Alan was very kind to give us a tour, and then we started looking at it really in detail. We looked at the square footage, the rooms, what could they be used for. And actually, we have a tentative layout already, if you're interested in that, for each of the rooms, including a library, card game rooms, meeting rooms that could be rented out as well to different groups in the area for a rental fee or for free. The Women's Club comes to mind, but other groups as well that are currently struggling to find meeting places. Then in July of this year, we actually met with the YMCA in Fort Worth to explore options for cooperation. And they came out in July to tour the building. They expressed an interest because they've kind of moved away from the old concept of serving communities, with underserved kids to more like underserved communities. So they're very willing to help communities establish like a gathering place. They came out here, long story short, they decided that the space is not quite sufficient to meet their program and daycare needs. But they did offer to provide us with they called it a mobile rec unit, which they could place here maybe once or twice a week on the parking lot, just to get an entry point into the community. So what we would like to explore is maybe as a first step to work with the Y on the mobile rec unit, maybe use the annex building for a community center. We already have like a list of things that would need refurbishing, ongoing maintenance costs, and things like that. So that's something we would like to explore with you, if you're open to the idea.
Okay. As I said, we can't really get it that deep into it because, well, it is an agenda. I take that back. We'd like to see a plan, or I would like to see a plan. You said you have layouts, and
Yes.
That would be the next step, is present that to Lori or Alan, and we can put it on the agenda for the next meeting. And if you want, you can come back and go through it.
Okay.
What the long-term usage, how long it would be, what traffic you would expect going through it. Not that we need a lot of parking here, but we still need access to the water treatment and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
But, Bill, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was going to say, before we jump into that hoop, I think we probably need to verify with legal counsel that that concept is something that we can
I thought-
execute as a body.
You were already on that, weren't you?
Stephanie's ready to speak on that.
Okay. Stephanie? She's dialed in.
Yes.
Or Emily.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I think Emily and I are both here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you
Okay,
turn the
great.
volume up on the monitor a little bit, please?
Yes.
Okay. Try it again.
Can you hear me?
That's a little bit better.
Okay, let me see if I can turn it up.
Oh, you sound good. We can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we provided a brief analysis to Alan that basically, like, yes, you can lease out your facilities, and there's a lot of different range of reasons that you can lease it for. One of the things you do have to be careful of is just you cannot give a gift of public property or public funds. So we would have to look, and it would have to be something that when you lease a facility, it'd have to be by fair market value or have some sort of benefit that the district is getting. But again, it would be a case-by-case basis, so we could look at the proposal, what it entails, and figure out what to make sure that you could enter into a lease.
Okay, so the women's club benefiting the community, as in libraries, that would fit the bill, correct?
Yes, I think that would be an appropriate use. We would just have to talk about like the value of it and what the intent is for, like financially for the arrangement.
Okay. Connie, you have already filled out, so just name and address, please.
Connie White, 119 Trophy Club Drive. The thing that I would wonder from the attorney perhaps is, in my experience or my background, MUDs were able to do recreational facilities. So I would also like to consider the possibility that this would be a joint a MUD project, perhaps, something that we could work with you all and be able to modify the building and use it as a community center. I think it would be a cool thing for the MUD to do, to be a part of the community in that way. And so I'd like to just have you consider that as well as any kind of lease out possibility. Okay, thank you.
Again, if you could submit to Alan what uses you want to use it for, and then he can give it to the legal attorneys, and they can look at it. Okay, does that sound right, Stephanie, Emily?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions?
No.
Bill?
I concur.
Alan, you have anything? Or Stephanie, Tracy?
No, that's fine. No, I agree. We need to see something in writing, the
just
plan, before we can have any type of further discussion.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you very much for coming. Okay. Let's see, that would bring, we can skip the stocking of the ponds. Is anyone here for Hogan's Glen? No, okay. We did 4, receive presentation. Why don't we do 5? We'll come back to 3.
Will, can you bring up the presentation, please, for number 5?
We're going to go to agenda item number 5, receive presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding feasibility study. And the feasibility study pertained to the town of Trophy Club absorbing the mud and taking care of water, wastewater. That's what your study is on, but there was a fire portion too, which the town discussed and didn't want to do anything on that. Is that right, Alan?
That's correct.
Okay, so thanks again, Chris, for coming. Chris has been servicing the mud as far as rate analysis for at least 5 or 6 years.
Long time, yes, sir.
Yeah. So thank you again for coming, and we'll look at your presentation. Doug and I were part of it. I asked you to present it. Initially, we were supposed to present it to all 3 governing bodies at the same time, which is Westlake, Town of Trophy Club, and us. They opted not to go that route, and I just wanted the other directors the opportunity to hear what Doug and I had heard. So there's no questions that are unanswered, and everybody's on the same page. So again, thanks for coming.
No, my pleasure. And again, Chris Eckert with New Gen Strategies and Solutions. Pleasure to be with you. As Kevin mentioned, here tonight to discuss the feasibility study over the dissolution, to present the results of that effort. When I've presented to you in the past, often I've mentioned to you I'd rather it be a discussion than a presentation. I'd like to take a little bit different tack tonight and make it more of a presentation, at least initially. That will allow me to efficiently get through the material. Then we can come back and answer any questions that there may be after we've gone through the presentation. But before I jump into the presentation, one thing I do need to mention is, I do want this publicly on record. We were retained by the town of Westlake and the town of Trophy Club with the district as a participating entity in the study. The district did not fund any portion of the study. So with that, as I stand before you tonight, I am not being compensated by the town of Westlake or by the town of Trophy Club. I'm here at your request. I'm here out of respect for the board. I want that to be on record so that there's no invoice going to anybody from this. This is, as Kevin mentioned, there was a thought that there would be a joint meeting where this would be presented. At this time, neither Trophy Club nor Westlake has asked for me to come and present publicly or have any other meetings at this time. So this, as far as I know, is the last of this effort this evening. Before I jump into the presentation, hopefully you've had a chance to read the report that we prepared, but I do want to read a quote from that report, because to me it encapsulates everything that's gone into this study. And this quote actually comes from an old study that was conducted many years ago. This is not the first time this issue has been looked at. By my count, I'm at least the 4th different entity to look at this issue. But the quote I'm reading for you tonight is from the study that was done by Mr. Lewis McLean, and this was back in 2008 when this study was conducted. As we started going through and looking at the documentation covering this issue before, this quote jumped out at me, and so if you'll bear with me here. The quote says, "I wish there was a way for me to wave a conclusive set of numbers, indisputable to the 4th decimal place, that would yield an answer to satisfy everybody. I can't, and I don't think anybody can. Numbers can always be challenged and even discredited." I have used this quote, I believe, in every different meeting that I held with the stakeholder group on this, because I think this is absolutely true. When we look at this issue, this is not a numerical issue. This is an issue of governance. It's an issue of policy. When you think about issues such as this, they are informed by numbers. Absolutely, they are informed by numbers, but they are addressed by people. And in this case, I have numbers for you tonight, but these numbers are based on assumptions. If we were to go in and change any one of these assumptions, these numbers also change. So the path forward, in my opinion, on this type of issue does not exist in numbers. It exists in terms of people. And so that's, I do want you to understand my position on that this evening as I go through these numbers. So as we jump in tonight, if I can make sure, there we go. So again, joint study with Westlake, with Trophy Club, worked with the stakeholder group. We met, I believe, 3 times. Thank you again to Mr. Carr, Mr. Harper, for the Friday afternoons you gave up. Alan as well, the Friday afternoons that you gave up with me, spending with our team. We went through a lot of data. We talked about a number of things in those meetings, and I do appreciate the time that went into that. You can see all of the group members here listed on the screen. But as we went through our methodology, the way we examined this issue is we looked at a 10-year time frame. We looked at various scenarios over a 10-year time frame. We started with what I refer to as a base case or status quo scenario. We went in and we established that base case as if nothing was going to change. What would the next 10 years look like in terms of a cost per meter equivalent to customers, or a cost per 1,000 gallons to customers? And that's as if nothing changed, everything stayed the same as it did today. I'm presenting to you tonight the cost per meter equivalent just for simplicity. There are cost per 1,000 gallon comparisons also within the study if you'd like to see those. So ultimately, when we came in, we then looked at different scenarios. What would happen if we changed governance? What would happen if we changed operations? And what is the impact to that cost? Now again, you're going to hear me say this multiple times tonight. This analysis is based on assumptions. If any of those assumptions change, if those assumptions change by $1, if they change by 10 basis points in terms of a percentage, the results could be different. So we can swing this any different way based on assumptions. I feel I've used reasonable assumptions. I feel I've used conservative assumptions. But again, they are assumptions as you look at these numbers this evening. So the different scenarios, I seem to have lost a slide here, or actually let me jump forward here. There we go. And then I'll jump back to the assumptions. So the different scenarios we looked at. Again, the first was the base case, the status quo scenario. That is if the district continues and there are no changes to operations. Scenario 2 we looked at was complete dissolution. Under that scenario, the district is dissolved and a portion goes to the town of Westlake, a portion goes to the town of Trophy Club, and operations are absorbed. Scenario 3 was under dissolution, but under that, it was also assumed that Westlake would continue to receive wholesale sewer service from the town of Trophy Club. So that is the difference under Scenario 3. Right now, Westlake takes wholesale wastewater service, or their wastewater is treated, a portion of their wastewater is treated by the Trinity River Authority. As we look at some dollars tonight, you're going to see some big differences there between scenarios 2 and 3 because of the dollars that it takes from TRA to treat that wastewater. But as you look at the study, there are some foundational assumptions I do want you to understand. The study excludes fire operations. It excludes the fire department. When we were first engaged in this study, it was my understanding that that was on its way towards resolution. As I walked into the first meeting with the study group, I found out that that was not being resolved as originally anticipated. So that is off the table as we look at this study. We are only looking at water and wastewater service. In doing so, we have treated water and wastewater operations as a true enterprise. When you think about governmental accounting, there's what is called a proprietary or enterprise fund. That type of fund is reserved for business-type activities of government. A water and wastewater utility is a business-type activity of government. It should be funded with rate revenues, not taxes. Now, again, you're a district, so it's slightly different as we look at being a district, but to try and simplify the study, to try and get a clear understanding of the cost, we treated water and wastewater operations as a true enterprise. All expenditures were assumed to be paid via utility revenues. No tax monies were assumed within that analysis. As we look at potential dissolution of the MUD, in working with your attorney, it's my understanding that Local Government Code Chapter 43.076 would apply in the event of dissolution. And there's a whole series of elements in there that talk about how dissolution is to occur, and specifically the division of assets and liabilities. There are a number of ways to look at dividing assets and liabilities. In working with the stakeholder group, we looked at a number of those alternatives. But what we ultimately came to was that the debt responsibility for the district, if we were to dissolve, should be allocated between the town of Trophy Club and the town of Westlake, reflective of how that debt is being paid today. So we tried to keep things as equal as possible and reflective as operations today. That has the least impact on customers. And so that is an important assumption as you look at how we've divided debt repayment responsibility within our analysis. This next point, if dissolution occurs, we did visit about what does that mean for customers? Customers have been paying for infrastructure. They've been paying for these assets, whether you're just a district customer, whether you're in the PID, whether you're in Westlake, you've been paying for these assets. So I know there had been mentioned in the past that it may be necessary for Westlake customers to pay for embedded infrastructure. That was not an assumption in this study. We have assumed that all the embedded infrastructure has been paid by ratepayers over the years, so there's no additional payment for embedded infrastructure. Finally, as far as capital investment, all we considered within our study was existing capital investment, existing debt. Every utility is different. Every utility has different capital investment needs, and that changes over time. So we tried to minimize the assumptions, minimize the variables. We simply assumed the capital investment that was on the books at this time. So with that, moving forward to some results. As we look at the base case, now this is what is anticipated to be the cost of service per meter equivalent. So taking all of the meters in the system, you have 1-inch meters, you have 2-inch meters, you have 4-inch meters, setting everything equivalent to a base residential meter. That's what I mean by a meter equivalent. We try to keep everything on that base level where possible. So here, the base cost per meter equivalent, you can see what that is projected to be if service continues from the district from 2024 through 2023. And again, this is the combined monthly cost for water and sewer service. This is not a rate. This is not a monthly bill. This is a cost. This is taking the district's cost dividing by meters. A customer's monthly bill will look different based on how rates are structured, based on what their usage is. We are simply looking at unit cost as we make this comparison. What the rates are and how customers are charged is up to this board. You set that policy. So I want to make it very clear, we are not looking at rates going forward. We are simply looking at cost. And this is a projected cost based on assumptions. So we used this as our base case, and when we prepared our scenarios, we came back and compared to this base case. So scenario 2 is what does dissolution look like, or what does cost to customers look like under potential dissolution? And this is the comparison of scenario 1 versus scenario 2. The dark green bar is the base cost you just saw under scenario 1. The light green bar is the base cost under scenario 2. Now I will point out, scenario 2 is slightly lower here on a monthly cost basis. In fact, it's 88 cents lower per customer per month. You take that, multiply it by 12, that's less than $11 per year per customer. So yes, there are slight savings there, but there are a number of assumptions that go into those savings. We have assumed that there would be that the non-departmental cost that the district incurs right now would go away. We have assumed that the Board of Directors cost would go away and that there would be no commensurate increase to the Trophy Club City Council cost or no commensurate increase to the non-departmental cost of the town of Trophy Club. Because again, you're taking district operations and effectively moving them under Trophy Club. Now, is that a reasonable assumption? It's the assumption we made. If those costs don't go away, then this flips. We have also made some assumptions about potential personnel changes, and I recognize that that can be a very sensitive issue. When you look at some of the dollars here, it's possible we have duplicative effort, but as I said before, if we take water and wastewater operations and move them under the town of Trophy Club does not have these operations right now. I can't answer the question as to is there sufficient staffing at Trophy Club to take over these operations completely without any additional cost, or without at least incurring the cost that currently exists at the district. Again, there are some assumptions that go into this. It is my opinion that these cost differences are de minimis. They are less than $11 per year here in 2024, and you'll see as we go further out in the analysis, it actually flips on us. As you look at Westlake, and again, this assumes complete dissolution. This assumes that Westlake does not utilize wastewater services from Trophy Club under dissolution. So why this difference? What is driving this difference here is wholesale wastewater service from the Trinity River Authority. There is a significant cost difference right now between TRA and between Trophy Club as a district, and that's what's driving this cost differential. That's ultimately what led us to look at scenario 3, whereby Westlake would continue to receive at least wholesale sewer treatment service from the district. So under scenario 3, again, this is very similar to scenario 2. Very slight cost decreases there. But again, it does flip on us as we get further out into the analysis where cost per customer is more expensive. But it is significantly more competitive or more cost effective for Westlake under scenario 3 if they continue to receive wholesale service from the town of Trophy Club. So ultimately, as you look at our findings and conclusions, I will say again, this is based on assumptions. If those assumptions change, these numbers change. It is my opinion that dissolution in the long term will likely lead to higher cost to customers. If there are any savings, to me, they're de minimis. They are not significant enough to drive a decision for dissolution today. Unless those assumptions are wrong, if somebody wants to come and tell me and explain to me where my assumptions are wrong, I'll listen all day long. But again, to me, any operational savings in this case are de minimis. Cost differentials for Trophy Club customers, they're small. They are small as I've looked at them. But there may be qualitative benefits. There very much could be qualitative benefits as we look at it, and I've put some of those on the screen. Some of these were provided by the study group. There may be some qualitative benefits that I can't put a number to. You see, again, here on the screen, potentially less confusion. I can't quantify what level of confusion there is in the community. I don't know. Streamlined planning, I'm not versed on the planning process and how many dollars or how much time may be saved there if there was a single point of contact. There is concern, obviously, from PID residents about representation and a voice on this board. I understand that, but I can't put a number to that. There was also a discussion about economies of scale. If we were to go through and do this, there may be more economies of scale by having the town of Trophy Club purchase everything. But again, Trophy Club is not making utility-related purchases today. So I personally don't see that there are going to be significant economies of scale to be realized in this case. Now, I do recognize that one of the potential benefits to the town of Trophy Club through this could be an enhanced revenue source. As you're likely aware, many municipalities do make a transfer from their utility back to the general fund. With what we've seen out of the Texas legislature in recent years, they continue to place limits on ad valorem tax revenue use and generation by cities. So we have a number of cities out there that are looking to their utility fund to help support some of those operations and pay their way. So there could be revenue enhancement, which could be critical to Trophy Club going forward if there are further limits placed on ad valorem tax. So again, I've presented some numbers to you this evening. These are based on assumptions. I have provided you the report. I encourage you to read the report in its entirety if you don't mind. I know there's a lot of material there, but I feel it's all good material. But I'm happy to answer any other questions or address any concerns you may have this evening.
Well, first, thanks, Chris, again, for coming and presenting this, so all the directors and whoever looks in on this meeting can get some answers. You mentioned the taxes are starting to be limited, and cities, as in Westlake, use water and wastewater as additional revenue. They increase your water rates or wastewater rates to fund they put it in the general fund, basically. Is that correct?
There are transfers to the general fund. Now, I can't speak to what the specific use of those funds are. There are many types of transfers. There are payments for indirect costs, such as a city's general fund will use the city's utility will use general fund services, such as finance, HR, IT. Those are indirect costs. That's like having a shared services unit in a company that different subsidiary companies utilize, and they're paying for those services. So that's a cost-based reimbursement. We see that. We also see a franchise fee sometimes, where a municipal utility will pay a franchise fee back to the city. That is treating the municipally owned utility as if it were a private utility, paying for use of the right-of-way. We also see transfers for pilots, payment in lieu of tax. Again, treating the utility as if it were a private utility, transferring those monies from the utility back to the general fund, just like it's treating all other private utilities the same. But ultimately, those monies do go to the benefit of the general fund and help support city operations.
Yeah, and thanks for that information. To clarify, when a normal person, resident looks at the prices, if they look at our water price compared to Westlake or something, you'll see they're 3 times more than us, and that's because they have the revenue. Additional general fund money being rolled into the water rates or wastewater. Another thing that can offset that is revenue bonds. Revenue bonds skew. We do have revenue bonds that are in our water rates, so you can't really compare apples to apples unless you know the total picture of where all the money's going to, or hidden money per se.
Well, and I'd be cautious to characterize it as hidden money, because all of this information is publicly available out there. All you have to do is look at a municipality's budget. So again, there's no hidden money. I don't want any perception of that out there.
Money that is it's not water rate specifically to water. That's what I meant.
Right. Well, and you also have to understand that there are just fundamental cost differences between utilities. As we've talked about, Westlake takes wholesale wastewater treatment service from TRA. That is a fundamental cost difference when you try and compare back to district operations. As I understand it now, it has changed, but there was a time, at least during this study, where you saw Westlake have all of their personnel on the general fund side, where they weren't in the utility. And so they would have a personnel cost transfer back to the general fund. That's just an accounting issue. It's still individuals working for the utility, but we're having to transfer money from one fund to another to pay for those individuals. I think the key element to zoom in on there is it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. Everybody is different, and it's very hard to get everybody on level ground for purposes of comparison.
And on the wastewater side, the big thing with Westlake was they are hooked into TRA.
Yes.
On the properties that are not in the mud. Most of them are commercial, or in the mud. So, and we looked at TRA, I don't know, back in 2010, 2012 or something like that. And just for the PID, it was going to be $6.3 million, if I remember right, for 1,400
I don't have that number.
houses. So
Yes, sir.
anyway, that was a plus that we didn't go that route. But we have our own treatment plant. Yes, it did cost in excess of $15 million, but it's paying for itself now, and it's expandable. So, Bill, do you have anything?
No, Chris, I really appreciate the study. It was a detailed read. I found interesting interesting items in it. You've showed some of the charts about the cost per meter. Looking at that, yeah, it may look good for 2 years, then it doesn't look good after that. And not only does it not look good after that, the equation gets, the delta gets larger, additional cost. And so when I see that and I look at the Westlake part of the equation, as a director, I'm tasked to look at everyone. And the impact in Westlake to our customers over there is extremely grim. I can see why Westlake would be interested in having those customers to add to their service side because of the difference in the rate structure between the two entities. And as Director Carr, President Carr has highlighted, the ability to transfer funds across to the general fund and the reasons that that can be done are multiple. And that's something that, as a customer of the MUD today, we don't have a printing press, but we're not transferring the money anyplace else. And looking at the three years when that you covered in the study of in the transfer of funds, and in this study you mentioned a 5% transfer for the town to the general fund. But if some point future the Trophy Club Town Council decided they wanted to transfer more, they could look at Westlake and see as high as 26% on the water side transfer across, and sewer, a real shocker, at 58.4% for a high. As a customer of a utility, whether it be a town or services coming from the town or MUD, I've spent 12 years on the political side of the equation and tried to be cost efficient in my operations, and to look at something where a simple transfer for the same service could possibly cost me 58% more is not something that I find tenable. And so it gets down to the point, you say, okay, what's a dime? Well, those dimes eventually do add up. And so when I look at this equation, I appreciate the study being done. It validates what I thought where it would go, but I didn't have your expertise to put it together. And so I appreciate that. And I look at this and go, it's not cost effective.
For the fourth time.
Well, I've sat in other chairs and so have you, but yeah.
And we'll probably see you in another 5 years, so keep your note. Okay, Doug, do you have anything?
I don't, except thank Chris for all the effort that you put in to do this, to define and get your hands around the numbers of what it takes to do this operation. I know there were a lot of people that were excited about different scenarios and separating the MUD or dissolving the MUD into the city, that there would be a huge cost savings. I think really it was more of a generator, a money generator potential for them. And once they discovered with your numbers that the benefit is nothing, or de minimis, as you say, the interest was gone. It was dissolved. And that's why they aren't here tonight, I think. But anyway, I appreciate all the work you did, and it was fascinating to sit on the group.
Well, thank you for your time and participation.
Tracy?
Chris, first I'd like to say thank you. Great presentation and everything that you present very well.
Thank you.
Great voice as well.
I appreciate that.
For presenting. I mean, it's excellent.
Thank
And I'm
you.
around a lot of presenters, so very nicely done. Thank you so much. Yeah, I read into the study, and it's given me more to think about. Basically, I just want to say thank you. I have a lot more to think about on this.
Alan, you're part of the committee. You have anything to add?
Oh, I have no comments. Chris and I work well together. We worked together since 2015, so very familiar with him and the product that he provides, and I think he's done a great job of providing valid numbers to you all.
Yeah, and I've worked with you for I don't know how long, so you get a Christmas card every week. You just kind of glazed over, and I just want to bring in, there's an analysis of the manpower, head count, and
Sure.
we all agreed that it was, if any, very minimal changes. So I just want to put that out there that, I mean, we have, 13 total people now?
14.
14, so we have 14 head count. We were at 19 for a long time and sometimes higher than that. Alan, controls the wastewater, the water treatment plant, and the outside manpower that fixes the line breaks and things, and then the inside staff, which you're pretty much looking at most of them right here, and does an exceptional job keeping everything on the budget, and so I applaud him. It's very streamlined operation, so I expected what you confirmed, that there's very little chances of changing anything.
Well, and to that point, I would point out again, Trophy Club is not providing these services right now. So there were very few positions where there was any potential duplication of effort. But the other thing I'd point out is there's so much organizational knowledge. There's so much, not even organizational knowledge, but just skills, knowledge, and abilities within some of your staff members that could, as I looked at dissolution, could be a way to augment or add to staff for Trophy Club or Westlake. Some of these individuals, if I was Westlake or Trophy Club, I'd be going after them in a heartbeat. So there's other consequences there when you think about potentially doing away with positions, doing away with people. You lose those elements, and that in and of itself can be costly in terms of a reduced level of service to customers. It can change operations and make it more difficult to provide continuous and adequate service. And to me, right there, that in and of itself outweighs any potential duplication of effort that might be there.
Okay. Any further questions? I see none. Again, thank you very much for coming out, especially based on the weather.
No, thank you.
Safe drive home.
I appreciate the
We'll see you
time.
in a couple months, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, Connie and Marion, I noticed you added some more people. Did anyone else have any comments on that topic? We can go back to it if needed.
I didn't do anything in advance, but I'd like to make a comment if I could.
On what, is it agenda item?
Disability study.
Oh, on Facebook, yeah.
Oh, yeah, just, you don't have to fill out the paper. Just come up and state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Greg Scheig. I'm a citizen of the Town and Trophy Club and a customer of these services. I also do a job description very similar to Chris. I work with a company called Stout. I do utility evaluations. I think the world of NewGen, they're a great company. In fact, the state of Texas picks 3 appraisers for fair market value projects, and NewGen and Stout are 2 of the appraisers on the city of Ferris right now, for instance. I have no disagreement with the way the analysis was structured. I guess my concern is over some of the assumptions, which, as Chris did a good job, will drive the conclusion at the end of the day. First off, I'll just say his little quote at the first about, the numbers aren't going to tell the story. I understand why somebody would say that, but I would encourage this board to maybe frame the analysis just a little bit different before making their final conclusion. But I guess my initial thoughts are, and I actually spoke to Mr. Carroll about this a few months ago. I would want to understand, which I didn't see in his presentation, some type of fair market value analysis between the assets in Westlake and the assets in Trophy Club. Because in my opinion, that's a starting point, and they're different. Trophy Club's almost built out. Westlake's got a lot of future growth potential, et cetera. The assumption that we're just going to give Westlake, let it take those assets because they've already paid for them. I've lived here 7 years. How much of the utility do I own? I've been paying my bill, but I disagree that that's a zero. It strikes me funny to think that's a zero-cost gift to the city of Westlake. The other thing is on the debt service breakout embodied in their analysis, they said they're doing it kind of based on current usage. Well, if you look at it on a fair market value basis, where you allocated the debt based on the relative fair market value of the two geographic areas, you might get a different conclusion. And also I saw that the savings were basically a small bit of G&A expense. But back when I was with Deloitte Consulting doing this for utility merger and acquisitions, you looked at the value, you looked at the cost to do the deal, and I didn't see anything about it's going to cost $1 million to get everything moved over. So I would encourage the board to consider some relative valuation metrics as opposed to the assumptions in this report before they make their final conclusion.
Okay, thank you very much for your information. This is just a summary, like 10,000-foot level summary. In the meetings that we did have, Chris broke what you're talking about down in the detail. We would be here for 3 or 4 hours. And the next part is the MUD did not contract Chris to do this. The decision is between the town and Westlake, which both of those parties have said, hey, we aren't going to do anything. So when it comes down to us making a decision, there's no decision on our part. It's just an update on, so all these directors, rather than just Doug and I and Alan, who attended the meetings, know what went on.
Right.
So we're not making a decision to, go forward or anything like that. It's the town and Westlake, and they're pretty much out, as Chris mentioned. They don't want to do anything. And as I said at the beginning, there was supposed to be a presentation between all 3 governing bodies at the same time to ask questions of Chris and his staff of anything. So as far as all the information, Chris just did a brief overview for the benefit of the other directors, and he did a very good job at crunching it down rather than going into the items that you mentioned, the asset worth and things of that nature. So just to give you that information.
Those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming.
Hold on. Excuse me, sir. May I have your name again, please? I didn't catch the
Scheig,
name.
Scheig is my last name. I live on Seminole Drive.
Could you spell that again? SCH?
Scheig,
And your first name?
Gregory.
Thank you.
Sir, I've got one comment
Sir.
to make, and I thought you
Loud?
brought up a very good, pardon me,
Are you allowed to make a comment?
as possible. Can we? Yeah, you brought up a good comment about the next step and what that is going to cost. I'm sure the lawyers would get well paid to make this dissolution or merger that I didn't see in the presentation. But we did in the committee talk about it and how much that would cost and how much time it would take. So, yeah.
It's not free.
Yeah.
No.
And
it's not quick.
But as Chris indicated, the cost differences are relatively minor, but for the right amount of money for the assets being divested, for the right, and if I were in your position looking at this decision to make, he identified a little bit lower cost, but I'd want to ask the question, well, how much savings would we need to achieve in order to avoid any cost increase? And then you could drill down in the different operational elements and billing and things like that and see if those savings are available. But it's a deeper analysis, I know, around a potential divestment, but it's just a different way of framing the problem.
And what you mentioned as far as the cost of the asset, I was along your same lines, is the asset has some value to it. If Westlake would have to come in and pipe a new line to service Westlake or the other businesses there. If we pulled out and filled it with cement, how much is it worth now? They'd go, hey, we need it and stuff. But again, we all decided as a committee that we would just say, okay, put $0 on it. Is that right, Chris? Yeah. So, Chris, did you want to add anything else on from his comments, or?
The only thing I'd mention, I don't know if the full report is public or not, but as you look, particularly at the second session, we did go in and look at reproduction costs. We looked at original costs. We looked at those allocations. The one thing I do want to emphasize, though, and relative to the point about having Westlake or somebody come in and pay for lines, you are a not-for-profit entity. And the idea here, and the idea in our analysis, was how do we get to the lowest cost to the customer? And so coming in and having any customer pay for an asset that they've already been paying for over however many years at this point, to us, that did not drive the lowest cost for the customer. Whether you are here for the district, whether you're here for Westlake or Trophy Club, it doesn't matter. We want to drive the most cost-effective service to the citizen. And so coming in and trying to generate dollars from one to give to another, to us, that simply didn't make sense in this case if we're trying to drive to the lowest cost to the customer. I completely understand value. I completely understand paying for value, but we've done different projects like this before where we're working for different municipalities trying to shift things around. The goal and objective was always what is in the best interest of the customer.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, any other questions? Thanks again, Chris. Okay, now we're going to jump back to the agenda 3, which is discussion and possible action regarding restocking of Hogan's Glen ponds. Alan, you want to open that?
Yes, last month during our meeting, there was discussion about reaching out to the Hogan's Glen HOA and coordinating the restocking of those fish in those ponds and working to see what that cost might be, and trying to get something back to you this month for taking care of that. And as previously mentioned, we reached out to Hogan's Glen. They are open to that concept and very appreciative of that. They have agreed to the restocking of the upper pond this fall, which will likely happen in the next few weeks, and that will cost roughly $240. And they've also agreed to the restocking of the middle pond at the end of fall next year. And the reason they requested that is because they plan to drain their middle pond this summer and do some excavation and dredging processes and would like to restock after that fact. So with that being said, it will cost the district a total of $1,740 for that restocking, and as been provided at the dais here, we did get a copy of a liability release from Hogan's Glen HOA. Their board unanimously approved it and has signed that. And here, if you all are in agreement to this, you can approve the signatures be made on this.
After the last meeting where we talked about this, I requested Alan and our attorneys to make sure we get a release of some sort. So it closes the matter and we don't have to worry about, oh, well, we need 20 more fish or something like that. So that's why this came up.
Has legal seen this? Our legal
Yes,
approved it?
this is
Our
legal.
legal's
Yeah.
Yes.
seen it and approved it?
That's correct.
Emily, you still on? I don't, yeah, she was muted. Okay, there she is.
Yes, yes, I actually drafted it for
Okay.
y'all, so.
Yeah, so we just need to approve this and sign it? Okay, I'll take a motion on accepting the agreement regarding pond restocking and liability release of Hogan's Glens.
Okay. Let me, you want to get the financial amount in it too. That was $1,740.
$40?
$1,740.
That's correct.
Okay, I move to approve the agreement regarding pond restocking and liability release dated October 25th, 2023, between Trophy Club Municipal Utility District and the Hogan's Glen Homeowners Association in an amount not, restocking in an amount not to exceed $1,740.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Rose. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? I see none. All in favor, show of hands. You vote for it? You gonna abstain?
He'll tell you in your hand. Okay, you got 3-4.
What? Okay,
You got 3-4.
okay. All against? Okay. Secretary Treasurer Harper against. Director Rose, 4. Myself, 4. And Director Hunter, 4. And then Ben Brewster is absent. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we're on 6 now, is that correct? It is Agenda 6, discussion, possible action regarding community awareness and communication services agreement with Four-Man Furnace, Inc. Tracy, you asked for this, and then Ben Brewster seconded it. Do you want to table it, or do you want to discuss?
We can discuss and take possible action if need be. I did a little research regarding Four-Man Furnace and basically our website and the cost. Originally, it was put in the budget for $40,000, and I believe it was dropped to $30,000 in the last budget. So looking at the numbers, I have found over the course of the past 11 months, there have been 51 posts. Within those 51 posts over 11 months, we have spent $25,482. That's an average of $2,016.55 per month for 11 months. And looking at this and also managing Facebook pages as well, a Facebook page can be created for free. And I'm looking at this, so we're paying $2,316 and change per month for an average of approximately 4 posts per month. And in my eyes, I'm thinking, Facebook, it can be free. And 4 posts per month, 1 per week, I'm thinking we could have a staff member that could post something up on the MUD Facebook page. And with that said, I believe we're pretty much I believe in the agreement, the contract, it was 9 videos, and unfortunately, I left that particular note sitting at my house, but I have Facebook open right here, and I have the page, and if I go look, I want to say, I think we're at the 9 videos. For the month of July, there were 3 posts, and I even went through and I added up all of, what's visible to us on Facebook, how many likes and so on. It's not that much. And looking at the Facebook page, there's only 121 likes, 170 followers in 11 months. That's not much. This page has grown slow, and personally, I believe that we're wasting money on this initiative, and that we should have someone within staff that can possibly post 1 post a week on the Facebook page. And I would like for us to stop wasting money, because I believe we're wasting money. We really haven't, what is it called? Public education. I don't think we've had much public education out there. And I know some of y'all thought this was a great idea in the very beginning, but we've spent over $25,000 for basically nothing. Let me rephrase. Basically for something that could have been done for free. And I would like to make a proposal that we end the contract, our agreement with Four-Man Crew, to run our Facebook page and turn it over to a staff member to possibly make 1 post per week, up to 4 posts per month for free within our staff cost.
Okay.
And I wish I had my other notes, because I had better numbers on that one.
Alan, can you give us a summary of what Four-Man Furnace does? I think they do a little bit more.
Correct. So going back to last year's fiscal year budget, there was a director that made a request to come up with a community education initiative. And so 2 members were selected to go through that process and budget appropriate numbers for what we thought it might cost to do so. And this was just, the understanding was to create kind of a one-time investment to create content, to be able to add to our Facebook site, add a Facebook site, push content out through the Facebook, also add that information to our website, creating and preparing these development of a community awareness and communication strategy, and this comes from the engagement contract. Preparing specific videos, websites, social media, and other communications to the public relating to the district and its services. So we originally reached out and we found, I believe we found 3 different vendors, request proposals for this initiative. When we first started with this, we met with Mr. Brewster and Mr. Harper and discussed that, our content here is going to be fairly minimal, but we will do our absolute best to compile information and data. We're not videographers, we're not content creators, we're not the designers, correct? One of the things that Foreman Furnace recommended was starting a social media site and pushing it out through that with the efforts of hopefully helping communicate what the district does and telling the story, if you will. So the original budget was $40,000. I think year to date, I looked it up yesterday, we've spent roughly $26,000 total, but that is including all of the video content and creating design and creative content. Most of the information that you see has been, in my opinion, we have fairly reached the end of content that we have available. Moving forward, I see that when we communicate, it's going to be project-based or a one-time situation where, we had the water main break at Indian Creek and Trophy Club Drive. That's something that it only affected 12 residents, but there's a lot of people that were like, hey, what's going on here? So quickly jumped on there and made a post on a Sunday, just, hey, everybody, this is what's going on. And that was one of the highest reached posts. My understanding too, based off of the numbers I looked today as well, I think the next highest clicked posting we had was the one where folks could sign up for the free irrigation service. So I feel that the initial intent has been reached. We've created the content. It's now in place. But moving forward, the only thing that I need to remind you all of is that if, for example, we need to put a bill insert to tell people some specific information, like maybe updating your information, we did that because we're working on a new notification system. We're just trying to get everybody's information as up to date as possible. Sometimes we may need to do a separate CCR document that we slide into those bill inserts. I'm not a graphic designer, and so we have Foreman Furnace help us through that. But his standard rate is typically $125 an hour, and he's very honest with his rates. If it takes him 15 minutes, he only charges us that. So even if we do cancel this, that's fine. I get it. We understand. But still keep in mind that there are certain updates to the website that we'll need to make periodically that staff can't do in-house, and we'll need them to help us through. And if we have some sort of design or creative content, we'll need to utilize their expertise in that as well. So just keep that in mind if you all decide to cancel this contract, that you may see future invoices for that. Going back to this year's budget, we budgeted an additional $10,000 for this effort just because we didn't know if we would spend that or not. I don't foresee spending that, but there are $10,000 rolled into the professional contract services for Foreman Furnace on this specific project. So if we don't continue forward trying to find data and try to find something to post, then we will save essentially $10,000.
Well, the difference is Facebook, people can put posts on there that are not factual, where if you do a website specifically for the mud, you're putting things in there that are fact related. And, I see these websites, and I know Tracy is admin on one of them, and people can basically throw things out there like the sky is falling or something, and at least 50, 60 people comment on it and stuff. Yeah, I saw something too, and that type of deal. So you have to be aware Facebook is great in many ways, but then in other ways, people put things out there, which I think everyone has seen, that, they accuse one entity or the other entity of doing something that they don't know all the facts behind it. And that's my only caution about just using Facebook as so-called homepage. And as you mentioned, Four-Man Furnace does a lot more than just someone sitting there and go, okay, post this. They do graphics and everything else, which we don't do. You know, unless you want to hire a graphics person for $70,000, $80,000 a year, you know, then that makes sense. But, you know, that's my input, I think.
Well, and I'm trying to make sure too that, you know, I think that the project itself is pretty much come to a close. In my opinion, the content that we have is going to be basically reposting and resharing. As Director Hunter mentioned, our Facebook gets minimal activity. It's a minimal way of activity, and our website is still the best resource that we have, in my opinion, as the district for our factual data. And also, when we communicate with the public, we have got our staff to where they communicate in a way that's very effective. We do a lot of door-to-door, and now we have this newer notification system that lets us do a further phone call, text message, or email if we decide to do so. So really, that's still the most effective way for us to communicate scheduled shutdowns, contracts, projects. You know, even when we post something on smoke testing, there's just not a lot of interaction. And that's just the reality here in Trophy Club, and that's just kind of how it is.
The only time people are going to be looking for is, you know, they go and they don't have any water. They can go to a main site and get the information what's going on if you have the alert system up and running correctly. And, you know, maybe you might want to post like Mike had 25 years or something, you know, put that on there. But most of the time, no one's going to go to a Facebook web page like the Trophy Club. I go there and I have trouble finding it, but, you know, on the mud, it's going to be even less. You know, all we do is water, wastewater, and sewer. You know, yes, we do own the fire station and things like that, but we're not going to go, okay, we fixed the garage door, you know, okay.
And another thing to add too is when we have specific projects, we make sure we communicate with the town manager, fire chief, police chief. Hey, this is going on. Typically, they'll share something to notify people as well. So they're pushing that data out as well.
Yeah, they have alert system too, so
That's
I think, but as far as doing graphics and stuff, that's not our forte. We're not a design base. We provide water and wastewater.
Right, and I think moving forward, it's going to be on an ad hoc basis when we need that, just kind of depending if we have a graphic that we want to, you know, for example, when we did the save the date, we asked him to help us create a third of a page to put in there because he lines up, it's already got the ink marks and all of that kind of stuff to where when we send it over to the printing company, it's ready to go, so.
Yeah, but
That's when we would use
I
it.
understand Tracy's concern too. It's like $40,000 in a budget.
Understood.
It's like, what are we getting back for that?
Nothing.
You know?
Well, I'd like to add something, you know, to comment on, you know, we're not going to hire a graphic designer for like $80,000. Well, I'll tell you this, I have been doing a lot of research when it comes to AI. And I've spent probably a total, I'll go up to a week on attending seminars, webinars, and so on the various types of AI platforms that are out there. Super cool one, doesn't cost that much, maybe a couple $100 a year. You can type in what you want, and this is actually under Adobe, Firefly or something like that, and boom, within seconds, you have a graphic. Several other platforms out there that I've attended, and I'm quite fascinated with a lot of this, with the AI, just on the graphic piece. And you're spending pennies to have your graphics created instead of thousands, several $1,000s, a couple $1,000s, when you actually can do this yourself. I mean, Lori could even do it. Lori, I'm not trying to put anything on you, but it's that easy. You just type in your words, and boom, it'll, you know, create seven different graphics. This is just one platform. So my whole thing is, I feel like we're wasting taxpayers' dollars, the citizens' on this Facebook page with four-man furnace. And I understand what you're saying about the website. I'm just going off of this Facebook thing. I'm like aggravated that we're spending all this money on something that could be done for free.
We manage most
Not
of it.
aggravated, I'm frustrated. Let me rephrase.
Yeah, and
So, I just wanted to point out that there are platforms out there that can be learned where, possibly Lori, I mean, within, I'll go 30 minutes. You've got it, boom, done, pass it through Alan. There's different ways that we can do this instead of spending all of this money with four-man furnace on what could be a free Facebook page.
Okay. So we have an agenda item and we have take action on it. And it is the agenda item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding community awareness and communication services agreement with Four-Man Furnace, Inc. I'll entertain if there's a motion. Does anyone want to make a motion on this?
Well, I would like to make a motion that we discontinue the services related to the Facebook page with Four-Man Furnace.
Okay, they deal with the web page, correct?
on an ad hoc basis. That is not part of this specific initiative. That is on an ad hoc basis. What I think we need to back up a little bit is the original community, what is it called here?
Community, public
the-
The
education.
Community Awareness and Communication Services Contract. The breadth of the contract and requested video content, initial 12 months worth of postings, that kind of thing, it has been satisfied in my opinion. What I need the board to understand is moving forward, anything that we post is going to be probably populated by staff
Okay.
or on an as-needed basis. We don't have a lot of content anymore to post about. It's typically going to be a project-related post or similar to the one that we posted on a Sunday,
Or alert.
or an alert, something of that nature.
Okay, again, we're talking about web page, the home page, and Facebook page is what you,
The web page, the normal,
Separate.
it is.
It's separate.
It is.
right, that's what I'm trying to.
Well,
you
there
mentioned
were
Facebook.
updates embedded in this agreement to update our webpage with what we created in the content.
Right,
So when you go under the administration and about page, there's now a tab there that has all the videos and such embedded on it.
but that contract's done.
We're done with this piece, in my opinion,
Okay,
yes.
so what does Four-Man Furnace do? In the budget, you budgeted money saying, okay, and then you mentioned the 10,000 probably won't happen.
We just put a number in there because we didn't know what else we
Okay,
might be.
so for
If
that
y'all wanted to continue
budgeted
this.
line, she had a motion to eliminate them from Facebook postings.
And I think, I understand what she's saying. Essentially, we're ending the community awareness and communication services agreement with Four-Man Furnace.
Yes,
Correct.
yes,
Correct.
that's
But
what,
I thought you said that's done anyway.
It is. That's what I'm trying to make sure everybody's on the same
But
page.
why, how come
Four-Man
you-
Furnace, we have money budgeted in software support for website updates as necessary.
but that's separate from the 30,000, which is now 30,000,
10.
because, now it's 10.
It's 10,000 in
It
this year's
started out
budget.
at 40.
Correct.
That was last year.
That was
And
last
you-
year's budget.
And you
We
don't
only
have to
spent
use,
26.
and you don't have to use four-man furnace. You can use anybody you choose.
If we can find someone cheaper, or if we want to use an AI, or I want to get onto Canva myself and create a document, we can do whatever we need to internally. I understand what Director Hunter is stating.
Okay, so what her motion was, if I heard it right, is cease from using Four-Man Furnace to update Facebook.
Correct. And
Is that what your
and-
motion was?
And ending this contract.
Yes, it was.
I just want to make sure
I just want to make sure that we're not spending any more money with them regarding this Facebook page.
Yeah.
That's my whole thing.
So don't use them for Facebook updates.
We can use staff. Sorry, I'm
No,
like, this is
hey,
almost kind of
Facebook
comical here,
updates.
because it's Facebook we're talking about. Thank you, Doug, thank you, Doug. Yeah,
But, yeah, I just want to make, because your motion pertain to Facebook, and I just want to make sure everybody understands, it's not to use them to update Facebook. Now, our webpage, if it has to have new design or new links or something,
Ad hoc basis as,
Correct.
Alan
So
stated.
if
As
you,
independent,
if
yeah,
you
okay.
cancel this contract and agreement for these services, it will not affect us using them for ad hoc services, if you will.
yeah, but again, backing up, that contract that was 40,000 last year is done.
Correct.
We used 26,000. There might be a balance, but we're not going to use the remaining balance for them to update Facebook or something like that. We could use them ad hoc.
Okay, so remember that this was a board directive.
Right.
So moving forward, I just put money in as a placeholder because I didn't know if there was going to be any further directives or directions from, Mr. Brewster is very passionate about this, and I didn't know if there was going to be any other content requested by the board. So it sounds to me that everybody seems satisfied by the contract, and this contract can be terminated, and we will use four-man furnace as necessary when needed, and we will find other means to take care of our Facebook post as necessary for relevant pushing out of information. Am I understanding that?
And right now, we're looking at 10,000 budgeted funds.
$10,000 is essentially what you're going to save by not proceeding forward anymore with this type of initiative.
That's pretty much the motion on the table right now.
Correct.
But
Correct.
I can't see why we would eliminate four-man furnace from doing Facebook if we decided we wanted to do that on a special event or a special occasion. It's like harming a contractor of ours for doing the job that we hired him to do, and now he can't do anything on Facebook.
Well, and we can still utilize, we have a four-man furnace has been a vendor of ours since 2012, I believe. We can still use them for ad hoc services. I know his hourly rate will not change if this contract does not exist anymore.
it's like paying twice.
So
We're paying a contractor to make a Facebook post when either Alan or possibly Lori can make the same post. I mean, it's paying extra money.
And
Yeah,
I think it also
understand what you're saying.
depends
It's
on
just-
the amount of effort the board wants us to put into Facebook and social media. We don't have a communications department. We don't have a lot to communicate. But when we feel like it's important and relevant, we will post something to the site or Facebook and let people know, hey, we have this contract going on, or hey, we're doing smoke testing here, or leak detection. But it's very, very minimal on an annual basis.
You can also take what you want to write up, pop it into OpenAI, and generate and professionally rewrite this for my Facebook post. It's free.
Understood?
maybe a board member would like to take on the Facebook. It's a possibility. I mean,
It is a possibility.
you got some time. I'm going to retire at the end of the year, so maybe I could do some of it too. I don't know.
No,
I just don't like spending money when it can be done differently and we save.
yeah, I'd rather just have staff control that rather than a board member. Board members could come and go.
It's a freebie.
No, I understand.
Conflict of interest for a board member to run the Facebook page. I already looked it up.
Okay. But to provide artistic content, wouldn't run it.
I'd rather just give direction to Alan saying, hey, minimize usage of postings on Facebook by four-man furnace. And again, what we post is basically alerts, or,
Project
Structure.
related,
yeah, like
Project
the one
related.
you mentioned in 2024.
correct,
So, I mean, it doesn't take more than 5 minutes to post something like that.
correct.
So, and then continue to use four-man furnace for the Trophy Club main page.
Or ad hoc.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a decision you make as a manager.
That's correct, but I think there's no detriment in canceling or terminating this agreement.
The agreement for them to post
Continue
Facebook.
this project, yes. The project is
The
essentially
project's
complete.
over. You keep saying it's over.
Understood, but as last year, I was given a directive to continue this project. So if we're stopping this project or initiative, I can't find, or I don't have any more content to backfill this project.
So,
And so by giving me a directive, you're essentially now saying we're ending this contract and agreement for community education.
Can Tracy change her motion to clarify that she makes a motion to discontinue the contract with Four-Man Furnace? Would that be better, Emily?
It probably would be more clear if what you're saying is you want to discontinue, you want to terminate the contract. I mean, I think saying just stop doing the Facebook post maybe is unclear, because I think it
Right.
sounds like that initiative was more than that, creating video content, which went on your website and that kind of thing. So
The project
that's what I'm
being
hearing.
the one that we initiated last year. I don't know if you have a specific name for that project, but that would be good to put in a motion too.
Is the
Public
aware-
education?
Correct, and the associated community awareness and communication services agreement with Four-Man Furnace.
Mr. Rose has something.
And I haven't seen anybody pull up the contract and see if there's a termination clause in the contract.
There
which
is, it's at will. Right
It's
here
at
I have
will?
it, and let's see here. The district may terminate the agreement at any time for convenience or for cause with written notice of termination of contract.
There was no,
So under that, let me ask this question. Under that contract, is there anything that gives them the sole right to perform those functions?
No,
So in other words, if we decide that we want to do more Facebook in-house, we're not violating the contract. We can still leave the contract sitting here
that's correct.
and still have access for other things if there are other things in that contract.
That's correct.
but Alan
this-
said he doesn't have any more
I-
content for that.
I feel confident that everything that was requested of us on this project, it has been done and completed. I just put money in the budget in case there was something else that came up that I was unaware of.
Tracy, you want to rephrase your motion to terminate the contract?
I'll rephrase my motion to terminate the contract with
Or,
Four-Man
excuse me,
Furnace
it's not- yeah.
regarding the public awareness education. I think that's it.
For Four-Man Furnace, okay.
I already
That
said
would be
Four-Man
sufficient.
Furnace.
Is that okay, Emily?
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay. Director Hunter has made a motion to basically terminate the contract for the educational, is that what you said? From Four-Man Furnace. And I'll second it. Do we have any discussion? See none? All in favor, show of hands? Okay, we got 2-2, so that's a no. Okay. Moving on. Okay,
You want to get those no votes to make it official?
yep, that's fine. All opposed? Director Rose and Secretary Treasurer Harper are opposed. So myself and Director Hunter were for, Director Rose and Secretary Treasurer Harper were opposed, so that's a no vote. It fails. Okay, moving on.
I
Agenda.
have one comment to close that out with, if I could. Doesn't mean we have to spend all the money.
Okay. 7, consider,
I have a comment too.
too late.
And I
Section.
don't disagree with you at all, because I hardly ever use Facebook myself, and I think you're right. We shouldn't spend good money on something we're not getting good value for, and I don't think we will, and I don't think Alan will either.
Okay, but it comes down to the general manager is going to make the decision whether to use it. So hopefully, Alan, you make good decisions, which you have in the past,
Absolutely.
whether to not use Four-Man Furnace or not.
Absolutely, I'll let him know too as well, but, again, moving forward, so everyone understands our Facebook, we're planning on only posting things that are as needed for what we're trying to get the public to be aware of. If you're driving down the road and you see smoke coming out of the top of a house, it helps us in the fire department when oh yeah, you know what, I remember seeing something about smoke testing in a Facebook post. That way they're not getting false calls, correct? So that's kind of the intent and understanding of what we'll be posting moving forward.
I would call, but I don't use my phone when I'm driving because there's, texting.
Yeah, right.
Okay. 7, consider an act regarding district bank signatories, including A, approve resolution number 2023-1025A as an apple, designating authorized signers on Prosperity bank accounts. B, approve resolution 2023-1025B as in Bravo, designating depository institutions, designating authorized signatories for the disbursement of district funds, providing for electronic transfers of district funds, and containing other matters relating thereto. Okay, I'll take a motion by Director Rose. Go
I
ahead.
move to approve resolution number 2023-1025 Alpha and to approve resolution number 2023-1025 Bravo.
Do we have to list the names? No. Okay, well, I'll list them anyway. William C. Rose, Kevin R. Carr, Tracy Hunter, Ben Brewster, Doug Harper, and Alan Formenton. And
Does this require a roll call vote? No. Okay.
okay, so I'll second that motion. And we have a motion by Director Rose, a second by myself for approving Resolution 2023-1025A as an apple and Resolution number 2023-1025B as in Bravo. Any discussion? I see none. All in favor, show of hands. Unanimous. Okay. Moving on. 8, discussion regarding board ethics training and legislative updates. This is basically would hopefully be an annual matter so we can keep up with what's going on in Austin, any changes, and what the duties of the directors are as MUD directors. Stephanie, how you doing?
Do you want to go into exec for this?
No. Does anyone want to go in executive session?
No.
I don't either. So Stephanie, you got the floor.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yeah,
See a full screen.
Let's see, I am going to share my screen. 1 second.
Keep us out of jail.
Yes, that's our goal as general counsel. Okay, let me see. That. Okay, let's start this slide. All right, can y'all see the presentation?
yes.
Okay, great. So when we discussed doing this, I do this a lot for boards, and I apologize. I didn't update the date. It was for the last meeting, and I hadn't
That's all right.
updated the state. You know, one of the things, I give these presentations a lot, and I've given 15-minute presentations, and I've given 90-minute presentations. Just so you know, this is not the 90-minute version.
No.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
we're going to do the 15. And if it's a 10-minute, that's even better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this is a quick one, and so I'm just hitting on a couple of things with the Open Meetings Act, and then also getting into just a brief update on like just what the legislature passed in the last session. So I'm certainly open to any questions afterwards, but I can also provide you a copy of this presentation so you can see some of the information.
Stephanie, can we turn the volume up a little bit somehow?
Yeah, let me see. Let's see. Let me see if I can do it right here on my
I think the chief has to show us.
audio settings.
We get a sound.
We'll just turn it up on our side. As soon as she talks, we'll know. It works.
Tell me, is that any better?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. No, that was my Zoom updated right before I signed on in this meeting, so that usually ends up ruining everything, so I apologize. Okay.
Sounds like more rain.
Okay. So first, just as an update, I mean, I know that you take the training at the beginning, like, you know, of coming on as a director, but some of the things I found, like even I look up to kind of update and just kind of remind myself what, you know, what the Open Meetings Act is and what it means. So the biggest issue about what a meeting is it's a deliberation. which it's a quorum of a governmental body of which the public business or public policy over which the governmental body has control of is discussed. What that means is that for you, that means there's 3 or more of you that is discussing or getting information about district business. And every meeting has to be open to the public. And what that means is that it has to be physically accessible to the public, and the public has to be permitted to attend. So some of the issues we find with that is sometimes when people want to when a board wants to hold a meeting at, say, their water treatment plant, I've had that happen before. That's a closed facility. You don't want the public walking around in there, and so that's something that we've dealt with in the past of, having to advise that you can't have your, if you have a closed facility, you can't have your meeting there. So one of the biggest, I think, struggles like with coming into the Open Meetings Act is this idea of a walking forum. And I am not going to read the 2 slides of the definition because basically the legislature 2 sessions ago, there was a court case that came down and said that the description of a walking forums in statute was too vague and ambiguous. So the legislature came back with a new definition of a walking forum that unfortunately made it more confusing than the original definition. So what I found is it's easier to demonstrate by an example of what a walking forum is. In the old, it used to be phone polling, which people aren't necessarily doing anymore. But what I see is the issue, how it comes up is that it's usually in text messages and emails. So one example is, so the idea is that you can have a communication with one other board member, which that's 2 of you, it's not a quorum. But if one of you forwards that text message onto another board member and then you'll start discussing it, well then even though each individual text message is not with a quorum, the successive chain of text, if you put them together, would be a quorum. And that's considered a walking forum and is a violation of the Open Meetings Act. And so if you see in the second section, I show a specific example. And in this is like where Director A emails Director B, and then Director B forwards the email to Director C asking for an opinion. In this situation, Director B is the one that has violated the Open Meetings Act. So if Director A doesn't know about it, Director C isn't aware that, that somebody else had discussed it, it's Director B that is pulling in a quorum right there. And there's actually been situations, I think it was in South Lake in the Dallas area, well, near you a few years ago, that there was a school board members, there were 2 school board members that were actively doing this forward along text and having several different text message chains of less than a quorum of the school board, but that when you put them together, it would have been a quorum. And they were actually booked on Open Meetings Act violations. Another thing where it comes into is social media. I know y'all were just talking about a Facebook page. I always caution boards when I work with them to be careful about, the amount of commenting that goes on the pages and also the way that you interact with other board members, especially with text messages, with email, and now with social media. That's something that is both in writing, with social media, it's out there for the public to see. And so that's really something that can be very difficult to try to defend if there was a situation where somebody was flagging that, 3 of you were having separate conversations on the same issue on a social media thread. So executive sessions, that's another kind of, hot topic I always like to do a refresher on with the Open Meetings Act. There are set reasons that you can have an executive session in the Open Meetings Act. I've listed here kind of the main, what are the different, main items that you would go in for. I would say the most popular and the one also too that has the most kind of questions that I get about is the consultation with attorney exception. And so the whole purpose of the consultation with attorney exception is to get the advice of the attorney on legal matters. It can include pending litigation. It also can be anything that's basically, legal advice. And the whole purpose is to preserve the attorney-client privilege, which meaning that the conversations that you're going to have, the advice you're going to get is privileged information. So you're able to go meet in a closed session to be able to preserve that privilege. And so part of that requirement is that general policy discussions are not considered to be within the privilege. No non-legal discussions. It has to be literally getting advice from your attorney and the information that's within that privilege. So one of the issues that I get a lot of questions on from board members is, the communicating the information from executive session. And so the privilege is the board's privilege, which the privilege is, is a quorum of the board. You can always waive that privilege. It's the board's discretion to be able to waive that privilege. But one of the things I always kind of caution board members on is being careful about that information that's getting communicated from executive sessions. My concern is always that, with the Open Meetings Act, Public Information Act, all of these different sort of sunshine laws, they're getting more and more restrictive in how they're being interpreted. And my concern is that if there is, if say you're going into executive session and you're discussing matters under the attorney-client privilege, but then on a very frequent basis, that information is then being conveyed to a third party and then waiving the privilege, successively, there's the possibility that somebody could say that, well, if every time that you go into executive session that you're waiving that privilege, there's the possibility that that executive session is not valid because you're not intending to maintain that privilege. So I always caution to kind of be mindful about the discussions that you have and how that information is conveyed and making sure that it's a board decision. So penalties for the violation of the Open Meetings Act, it's a fine of not less than $100 or more than $500. I've actually had a board that they had improperly noticed a meeting. It was a retreat and they wanted to hold it anyway. And then, they asked what the violation would be. The monetary violation was not problematic, but then I threw out that, it's also confinement in county jail for 1 more month or, up to 6 months. That has happened. It's very rare, but it has happened in the past. And one of the biggest issues too that happens is that if there's a violation found of the Open Meetings Act, then any action in that meeting can be voidable. So that means anything that you voted on could potentially be voidable, but it's not automatically voided. So that's the brief overview of the Open Meetings Act. So the legislative update, it was a very decent session for districts. I think there was not a lot that got passed that was negative, and there also was not a lot that was passed that really changed a lot, which is always good. There was House Bill 2815 we refer to it as the Omnibus Water District Bill because it had a lot of different information in there about water districts. One of the things that it did do was to raise the director fees of office to match the legislative per diem. That's currently at $221. So the board has to set their fees of office by resolution now, and you can do it anywhere from $0 up to $221, but the annual cap of $7,200 still applies. So one thing that was repealed, which has been problematic in the past, is that the prohibition to fill a vacancy on the board. In the past, you couldn't appoint a person who had recently resigned or who was defeated in an election. That was something that was difficult because where you had, narrow defeats in an election, a lot of times that was usually the easiest person to appoint when a vacancy came up and there was a prohibition. Now that's no longer there. So it gives you more flexibility as a board to be able to fill vacancies. One of the things too that, we worked with Alan to update your notice to purchaser. It gives a lot more flexibility to districts now to put in your notice to purchaser every year what actually applies to you. Before there was a lot of statute mandated language that really wasn't applicable to a lot of water districts. And so we worked with the district this year to update your notice to purchaser to be a little streamlined and hopefully help the people that are getting that notice when they're purchasing property to really kind of understand better what it means from the district. So just some other brief legislation. House Bill 3440, it requires water districts to post notice agendas and meetings on the district's website. That's something that you're already doing, and I think a lot of us have already have that practice down, even before COVID, but definitely since COVID. So that's not a huge change for most districts. 3810, House Bill 3810, it requires that for a utility that you have to report boil water notices to the TCEQ. Typically you go through the process for TCEQ to do those boil water notices, but now you also have to report them to TCEQ, which you didn't have to do in the past. I think a little bit of this is coming from, some of this is trickled down from URI, things like that of, you know, the TCQ didn't necessarily have a mechanism to track all of those, so this will create a way for TCQ to know who's doing boil water notices. One of the real helpful bills was House Bill 3437, which increases from $50,000 to $150,000 the max amount of change orders that the board can delegate to an employee. The cost of things have gone up so much, and especially when you're dealing with a water treatment plant, it's really easy to have a change order that exceeds $50,000 for just about anything. And House Bill 3507 is similar to that. It raises the competitive bidding threshold from $75,000 to $150,000 when you have to publish for bids, because again, when you're running a water utility, there's not a lot that you're doing that's under $75,000, and so this kind of gives a little bit more flexibility. These last two bills get more flexibility in your spending and your discretion. And again, it can keep competitive bidding costs down. So that's it. I told you I'd keep it brief. I'm happy to answer any questions. And also, you know, Emily and I are also available if there's any follow-up after the meeting if y'all want to ask us.
Okay, just to clarify on the House bill regarding appointment, wasn't that 2 years that you couldn't appoint someone that lost an election or resigned or something?
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's removed now.
That's good. Good deal.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, anyone have any questions? Okay. Thanks a lot, Steph.
Great, you're welcome. Thank you.
Actually, I do have a question for Stephanie.
Okay.
This is completely off the whatever. Are you related to Mr. Albright from Fulbright? He was at Fulbright and Jaworski and Fulbright. There was a Mr. Albright there, one of the attorneys.
I don't think so, but there is a lot of Albrights on my husband's side that they keep popping up, so it's possible.
I was just wondering. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Not that I know of.
Thank you.
Thanks for putting that together, Stephanie.
You did
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody understands you're going to do jail time?
Minimum of 30 days.
Yeah.
I thought it was 6 months.
No, up to 6
minimum.
months.
Minimum.
For you, 6
Minimum.
months.
$100 is not a problem.
It's only,
Yeah,
only a
party
month.
there.
Yeah. Okay. We didn't go into executive session, and the next agenda item is number 10, items for future agendas. Does anyone have anything? Alan, you got anything upcoming?
For a point of clarity, I will reach out to the Women's Club and bring that item back when they're ready to, I guess,
Right.
provide information to you.
And, I mean, you understand what we need. We need basically, you know, a plan of what they want to use it for.
Correct.
What type of cars and, you know, the hours and stuff that they're going to do. So just so they give a comprehensive plan on what they're going to
I
use
know
it for.
that Ms. Hawker has spent a lot of time researching and collaborating and coming up with a lot of the different variables that the facility would need for them to do what they're proposing to do, by going around and visiting other sites as well. So we'll do our best to make sure that your questions are answered regarding that, and I'll bring that back once she lets me know she's ready to. I know that she seemed hesitant the last time I spoke to her about it, like they weren't ready yet, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that they have interest in it and we can utilize that building for something.
Sure.
But it has to meet, you know, our guidelines as Emily, I think, outlined, you know, and that Connie brought up the recreation standpoint.
Yep.
I mean,
We can do that.
yeah,
We
yeah.
could do public-private partnership on this.
Correct, that's
We could
correct.
do like casino night down there, take a little skimming up. I'll break out my hat.
Maybe bingo night too.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else that we need to put on the agenda? You have anything, Bill?
No,
That's what I'm aware
Doug?
of.
No, sir.
Tracy?
No, not at this moment. Thank you.
Okay. So the next meeting, agenda item 11, next regular meeting date is going to be November 15th, 2023 at 6:30 PM. Anyone have any issues with that right now? Okay. And that is it. The meeting will adjourn at 8:21. Thank you very much, everyone.